It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Words of famous American humorist and free thinker Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark Twain. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. The words of American president and thought to be tyrant. We can have that discussion another day, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. Both of these principles were on full, horrendous, and ugly display on Thursday of this week in the first of what allegedly was scheduled to be two presidential debates. What we saw were two people of similar age, one of who has been demonized by every major cultural institution one can think of, and the other who we have been told, assured through our experts and our intellectual betters, was 100% qualified to be leading the United States and the free world. Not at all cognitively impaired. We got that cognitive impairment and his complete incompetence put on full, public, and undeniable display for a period of 90 minutes. Even though all of the rules of the debate had been skewed in his favor, even though he had a full team of aides taking him to Camp David and letting him prepare for 6 days, even though it was patently obvious that he was on the same stimulant cocktail that they have used to keep him propped up weekend at Bernie's style for the entirety of his administration. And even in spite of the party's final, most essential command to ignore the evidence of our own eyes and ears that we've been told for months, probably in excess of a year, if we're honest, to ignore the obvious cognitive decline of this man. It was put on full public display. There was no denying it. Take a look at this picture. This was from ABC. They had to cut away from his post-debate celebration party as his handler and elder abuser, the evil Dr. Jill. Just take a look at this. The expressions of a power-mad woman and the expressions of a man who doesn't know what planet he's on. ABC was so embarrassed that they cut away in the middle of it. I was physically sickened, and as much as I detest this man, at several points during the night, I genuinely felt pity for him. This is a broken man who should be on a beach somewhere being made comfortable. And they are putting this on display and insisting that the emperor not only is wearing clothes, but has a full and beautiful suit. We are told to ignore the evidence of our own eyes and ears. If you guys witnessed this live, if you stuck around after the debate, just a couple of seconds, Jill rushes out on stage, grabs him by the wrist to lead him, and he could barely handle the stairs. It would be easy to laugh. It would be easy as a conservative to be celebratory. The temptation is definitely there, even for me. We've watched news whore in chief, Korean identity hire Jean-Pierre, insist that all of these things are, and I quote, deep fakes and cheap fakes, videos out of context that Republicans are using to manipulate public opinion going into the election. This crew of news whores reinforcing it. These and others insisting that we should ignore the evidence of our own eyes and ears. And if this was your only echo chamber and your only source of news, I could totally understand why you would be shocked. His core base bought it hook, line, and sinker, that it was all out of context, that it was all deep fakes, cheap fakes, and out of context videos, that he was 100% sharp, that he'd never been better in his whole career. This is the power of propaganda. For Republicans, for conservatives, for anyone with two brain cells to rub together and open eyes, This was no shock at all, but for his base, witnessed their panic. And I understand. I even sympathize with them. You've heard me say it before. If this was the only place that you got your information, the only sources that you have come to rely on, why wouldn't you believe it? And then it's put on display in front of you, and you have no choice but to accept the ugly truth. Barring all of the things, the horror show that was going on inside, we weren't even shown by these same news whores the events that were taking place outside. The pro-Hamas protesters that had gathered, the Antifa and BLM crowd who tried at one point to storm the building and were held off by Atlanta police. You didn't even hear about that from the news whore institutions. You had to go to the alternative press. You had to go to Twitter. Oh, that bastion of hate speech. You had to go to conservative news sources, off the beaten path. You had to look at sources like Rumble, because YouTube even censored most of the videos, except for Andy Knows, which is how I knew about it, and I consider myself fairly astute. Now we are being treated to the spectacle of who they're going to replace him with from the sensible people on the left, even as the hardcore doubled down and continued to insist that it was just a bad show, that he had a cold and was on medication. Not making that up, by the way. That's how the left is looking at it, but I'm not too concerned with how the left or the right is looking at what happened on Thursday. I'm worried at how people like this man are looking at how things happened on Thursday. Not because he has any territorial ambitions, but because he realizes that the two kids standing in the bathtub remind me to get back to that analogy later. One holding 6 matches, the other holding 4. Only one of those kids is functionally retarded. I worry about how these people are looking at it. Europeans that claim to be our allies, even though they spend less than 2% of their GDP as agreed upon for NATO to defend them. And they're all gathering around this little coke-addled clown shoe midget in the middle. And how he might be looking at what happened. But I'm deeply, deeply concerned about how this man looked at what happened on Thursday. This man who has, I won't say that he's bought the president, but let's just say that he's leasing with option to buy. And now he has to look at the potential consequences and how he may have to move up his own table of time. Not only in Taiwan, but let's take a look at this little chart. I know Fox News, the conservative network, all propaganda. And you know what? You're 100% correct. But the chart is accurate. These places where Chinese-owned farmland are in close proximity to our military bases. You think this is an accident? You think the Chinese aren't thinking in the long game? You think that a place that isn't exactly known for just letting their people go whenever they don't like living there anymore, just letting them waltz across the border, you think that this slew of single military-age Chinese men coming across our southern border is an accident? A coincidence? And speaking of the southern border, that's not the least of threats that we have to worry about. And allegedly, that cadaver is in charge of all of those efforts as well. Venezuelan gang entering U.S. via Mexico will unleash an unprecedented reign of terror. That's according to Judicial Watch, as evidenced by this gentleman, Raul Castro Mata. Accused migrant cop shooter admits gangs are smuggling guns using food delivery bags. This is going on in New York City and a number of other blue-controlled cities that are being swarmed with illegals right now. A whole trafficking network going on right under our nose. And as far as cultural incompatibility goes, in his own testimony, he tried to plead that he couldn't be held accountable for shooting a cop because in his culture, Cop shooting is a way of life. Don't take my word for it. Google it yourself. Let alone we've already forgotten about poor Jocelyn Nungary, raped and killed at the age of 12 by two of those same Venezuelan so-called migrants, or the slew of other American young women who are being raped and killed by the same group of savages. But like everything else, there'll be plenty of news whores to tell us to ignore the evidence of our own eyes and ears. The scripture says in Proverbs 29:11, a fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. This is truth. But one should also take into account that these same people who deny the existence of Christ, who deny religion, period, are telling us to emphasize this particular part of Scripture, to focus on hippie Jesus rather than turning over tables Jesus, not even addressing the true nature of what defines a fool. That very phenomenon was addressed in Matthew chapter 15, verse 9. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. But stepping away from the scriptures to critical analysis and critical thought on the topic of foolishness and giving vent to one's anger. This quote, one bold message in the book of Job is that you can say anything to God. Throw at him your grief, your anger, your doubt, your bitterness, your betrayal, your disappointment. He can absorb them all. As often as not, spiritual giants of the Bible are shown contending with God. They prefer to go away limping like Jacob rather than shut God out. If we shut God out at this stage of the game, we do so at our own extreme peril, whether you walk in the faith or not. I don't wish to give full vent to my anger. There is a difference, however, between pride-driven wrath and righteous indignation at that which can be described as nothing short of evil. So I will bring that to God, even if it leaves me going away limping like Jacob. We owe that to ourselves, and we owe that to our Creator. And if we walk away from that responsibility at this stage of the game, with everything that is at stake, damn us all for fools. Fools and cowards. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors. And I cannot stress this enough as my tenure here is ending. Certainly not employers. That's for you docs happy Antifa maggots out there. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to stretch open that maw and choke you with a turgid dose of truth cock, with or without your consent. Armed with a black latex glove and a fistful of truth, boys and girls, welcome back. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. Glad y'all made it. What a dumpster fire on Thursday. We're going to get into that and a lot of other things. I see a lot of people on early. Who's got the fire? Everybody in for the drum roll, please. Coming our charging out of the starting gate, as we always do, the bumper music sourced from a gut-stomping all-American rock and roll band. The name of the band is Red Desert, from the smoldering embers, craters, and ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. You guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. This one's going to be a coin toss and a roll of the dice this week, boys and girls. But we're going to come at it with the best of intentions. Knuckles up, chin down, head forward, and charging once more into the fray. Let's get a look at the comments over here. Let's see which one of the usual suspects have already shown. Brother Clem showed up like over an hour early. I think Clem is missing me. And for the record, Clem, I am missing you too, brother. It is good to see you on board. I'm looking forward to seeing you again, man. At the latest, we're looking at September. We'll talk about more of that stuff later. Look, the lovely Miss Charlie has decided to spend some time with us. That is fantastic. The OG sinner sister herself, the divine Miss Emmy, on board. Bill Wade, my brother in Christ, my flesh and blood, my brother in all senses of the word. Good to have you here, man. Dude, wow. I know you guys have still got to be reeling from it. I know this guy's reeling from it. The mighty, mighty Stone on board, man. Good to see you out there. Yeah, it is good to see all these people coming out early. I barely knew what to do. Everybody else showed up early, and I'm running on a 3 to 5 minute delay trying to get the Wi-Fi issues ironed out. We got brother Joel Allen Jackson on board, denizen of the Midwest. Do you live by the River Willard? The Ohio River, sir? Yes, indeed. Man, and that is good news about what's going on with Mike, man. I've been watching your posts and stuff. It's good to see you two. I mean, look, the bond between you two and the love between you two is a fantastic thing to witness, but it's nice to see that finally just coming to fruition, not the love, but all the struggles and trials that you guys have been wrestling with, to see that finally getting alleviated somewhat and you guys finally reaping the blessings, it's phenomenal. And I keep you guys in my prayers and I appreciate everything. Speaking of prayers and brothers in Christ, Deacon Mark on board, sweating on the porch. Brother, I'm sweating inside here in Nevada, man. We don't have the humidity, but we definitely got the heat. He's out there with his lovely paramour, Miss Ida, and no doubt imbibing some, what does Bongino call it, adult sodas? Yeah, but there's no mixer, so he's drinking it straight like a man. And no doubt smoking a cigar. Ida, I'll let you bum a cigarette, but it's going to have to be long distance, 2-day shipping. I hope you don't mind. Maybe you can catch it on the replay and relive the moment. I don't know. Brother Jude on board, man. I am happy to see you here, brother, and appreciate the conversation like earlier this week. One of these days, man, we're gonna have to find a way to be on the same job site at the same time. Brother Doug Turtle, good evening, brother. Ears are on and ready to receive. Well, I hope I got something to deliver for you, man. I hope I will rise to expectations. Brother Shin, hello to you too, my good friend. Remind me, I need to either shoot you a text message or call you. So shoot me a text message right now. So when I'm getting out and I'm doing the post-show wind down, I won't forget. Let me see. All right. Yep. Drum rolling animal styles. I walk. All right. I like it. Looks like Poor Choices are going to win tonight and have to dip out for work. Well, stitch them up if you can, honey. I couldn't do what you do. I just don't. Even if I had the skills, I don't have the patience. I take a look at a lot of these knuckleheads and be like, you know what, bro? You brought this on yourself. Kick bricks. But then there's that Hippocratic oath, and she's sort of obligated. I admire the tenacity, man. I really, really do. Brother Phil, watching from Tyler, Texas, just down the road from Deacon Mark and company. Hopefully, I have Brother Sonny showing up here in a little bit. Looks like all the usual suspects are on board, and a lot of you are on early. Again, apologies for that 3 to 5 minute delay. I just wanted to make sure, after that one disaster we had a few weeks ago, I wanted to make absolutely sure the connection was on, and I'm doing the test runs, and I'm checking signal strength and all kinds of stuff. This is my last week out here in the desert. I'll get into that a little bit more as we take you. Go ahead and start fading the bumper music out right now. But my tenure with Brahma, and I'll go ahead and tell you the name of the company right now, because if you dox me now, it doesn't freaking matter. My tenure with Brahma out here at Round Mountain Mine in Nevada has come to an end. We are rolling the crane out on Wednesday, and then I am going down with a certain female to Las Vegas to spend a couple of days. We've got a little side trips planned from there, and it should be a lot of fun. Then I'm going to bounce back up to the mighty, mighty Spokane, Washington for about a week, and then I'm going to turn right back around, and we're going to do it all again. Go ahead and feed that bumper music out. Wow, man, we made it all the way through the tune this week. How about that, man? Wait for it to go and click on over to that next track. So that one is on standby. One of these days, man, I'm going to have to try to put some sort of like side camera. If I ever get enough time back in Spokane to set up. I really, really like what Brother Sonny has done with his production studio. I like the look of it. I like the way it's put together. I like the fact that it's got options for like different camera angles and stuff like that. And once I get that situated, you guys will be able to see from a Bart's eye perspective how this looks. Because again, from the beginning, it's just been me, a laptop, and originally not even a webcam. This webcam, which by the way, thank you again. Stone hooked me up with a webcam and a professional microphone like early on. I think I was where was I? I think I just started in Iowa then. So that's been what 2021, I guess. And Brother Stone was cool enough to hook me up with that. Before that, it was literally on the previous incarnation of this phone. You guys have probably heard me go on about this phone. Caterpillar, yeah, the guys that make the big diesel equipment, they contract with a company called Bullet Phones. You know, I'm a sucker for that kind of. Yeah, advertisers have it so easy with me. They have it so easy with me. But Caterpillar, yeah, the big diesel equipment guys, they make job site rugged phones. And if you look at it, this looks like a hard case. This is not the case. This is actually the phone. And the previous model of this was what I originally would do the sermons on. I had this little rubber pig. Too easy. Don't take the joke. I know I left it out there for the layup. Just don't. But it would hold the camera at an angle, and I would just sit it down like pretty much where the webcam is now, and it was just I was doing it straight into the phone, and we did that for good lord, man, we did that for a couple of years, I think, and to this day, it's just now it's me and a webcam and a laptop, and everything's up here, and I'm trying to click. I don't have production. I'm just man. At the end of the day, guys, I'm just a crane operator with some opinions. This is my weekly therapy, and it works for me, man. It's a nice little vibe, but everything's very like low end production and everything. One day. Uh, God willing, one day this will no longer be a labor of love. One day this may be an actual professional endeavor, and we'll be able to bump it up a little bit. And maybe one will have to follow the other. We'll see if I ever get more than a week in Spokane. With regard to that, what's that? Lost y'all for a while to a bad thunderstorm. Yeah, man. I'm looking down in Texas and Louisiana, and it looks like you guys are about to get pounded by some serious tropical nastiness that is coming your way. Cyclonic storm making its way into the Gulf right now. Everybody, you already know. For people outside of Texas, I don't know how familiar. If you're outside of Texas, let me know if you've heard the term hunker down, right? Because anybody who's from the Gulf Coast, like hunker down is like throughout storm season, throughout hurricane season, that is, all right, everybody just got to dig in and hunker down, I haven't personally heard that expression used anywhere from people outside of the Gulf Coast, like Texas and a few people from Louisiana that hunker down, when we were having the wildfires up in Washington, I remember I was sitting around having coffee with like 3 or 4 of my friends. It was like, and they were talking about how close it was getting to Medical Lake, and I was like, dude, I hope the Medical Lake people are out there hunkered down, and they're like, hunker, what the hell is hunker? Anyway, kind of a little sidebar there. So the game plan currently is we're going to be rolling the crane out of the hole. This is like we're 1,600 feet deep in a big open pit mine, and it's steep angles and stuff. It was in Florida too, right? Okay, yeah, cool. So still on the Gulf Coast, right on, cool. So we're down in this hole, and big steep angles for you can get a haul truck up that hill, but we brought the crane in on a low boy and we unloaded it on some level ground, and the guy lost traction going back up the hill. He lost traction even with an empty trailer. So trailering the crane out is going to be problematic, and I may wind up actually having to drive that damn thing out of the hole, which for any of you guys who have been around, I mean, it's not the biggest crane. It's like a little 80-ton RT. But and I know if Ryan's watching the replay, he's like, yeah, that's going to be an entertaining little drive. Of course, with Ryan's skill set, he's going to be like, it's an entertaining little drive. I could do it in my sleep, I've taken some RTs into some rough places at some weird angles, and we're going to see how it works out. But regardless, My tenure with Brahma ends on Wednesday. My responsibilities for this job come to an end, and so we're shutting it down. And then I'm going down to Vegas with the old lady for a few days, and I've got some side trips from Vegas planned out, and then I'm going to be bouncing back to Spokane, and I'll have a week in Spokane to handle everything that I need to get handled up there. And then on the 13th, I am emceeing a fight show at Northern Quest Casino for Rick Little. If you guys follow the UFC at all, Sick Jitsu, Rick Little, and of course we got Juliana Pena, and um, we got Mike Chiesa, we got Sam Cecilia, Brady Highstand is now an up and comer. Spokane, we've got a tremendous talent pool up there, but it's good to be working with Rick. Rick is a phenomenal promoter, and I'm emceeing a fight show for him on Saturday the 13th, and then legit, as soon as I'm done with the show, I'm coming home, getting out of the monkey suit, getting into some travel clothes, and I'm bouncing and making a straight haul down to Rock Springs, Wyoming, where my next gig is, so I can be there late in the afternoon on Sunday, so I can start first thing Monday morning at the next gig. So, wow, yeah, it's nonstop, man. Life comes at you fast and relentlessly, but it's cool. I love what I do. I love that I have so many irons in the fire, and I glean something from every one of those irons. I get something from doing these sermons. I get something from the crane work. I mean, beyond the ridiculous money that they pay me to play with Tonka toys as a grown up. There's a lot of crane work, being able to travel and see parts of the country. I get to try little towns out. You know what I mean? I have lived in a half dozen towns that you've never heard of and wouldn't know where to begin if you were looking to find them on a map. And they're all neat little towns. I get to experience like different parts of America and like working class blue collar America, like real people out there in what everybody else calls flyover country. I get to live in these little towns, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 6 months, in Prineville, Oregon, which man, I miss that place so much. What a gorgeous little town with great people, and I was there for a little over a year in Prineville, and it's a really cool side benefit of the gig, the lifestyle, to be able to dip my toe in the pond and like check a place out and see that region, like on the occasional rare off day that I get to be able to check everything out, and then like take a week usually or whatever when I'm done with the gig and just go, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna check this whole place out, and we'll see what this part of the world is about. It's a great life, man. It's a really, really great life. And I consider myself super, super blessed. Do I have my bad days? Of course I have my bad days. Do I butt heads with people that are unsavory to work with? Occasionally, not as common in this business as it is in others. But I also get the benefit of like meeting and talking to people who are of a similar background and a similar mindset, and are living the same kind of lifestyle, man. I have the greatest, and I know I'm rambling here, but just let me roll with it. I'm an old man, and and I'm not running for president. So if I go off on a tangent, at least A, I'm articulating clearly, and B, we're not going to blow up the freaking world. So let me rant. I had a really great crew. I called it the conversation crew, and our conversation pit is like right out here on the front. I'm in this building that was like thrown together and turned into a motel. It basically used to be like those office trailers, a couple of those bigger office trailers that you see on job sites, and they sandwich like two or three of them together, and they stretched everything out, and they built it into a motel for people to come in and stay weekly that are working over at the mine. And we got a front porch area out here, and you pop out to grab a smoke or whatever. And I got my guys out there, Steve in particular, man. Steve, if you're catching this, bro, I already miss you, man. I already miss you. We had some really great conversations out on that porch. And of course, you got like Richard, Kevin, some of the other guys, but Steve in particular, man, it was really cool to be able to speak to someone who is like totally simpatico and on your level and living that life. And you've got history, and you've got stories, and you've got perspectives on the world that are off the beaten path from the grazers that you were used to interacting with, man. And sometimes you glean insights. I'm not trying to pull this working class hero thing, but sometimes you really get insights from folks who are on that same level. You know my favorite quote from Huxley, about, in the course of every intellectual, if he stays at it long and unflinchingly enough, arrives at the obvious, a position from which the non-intellectual has ever stirred. And a lot of us, unwashed, deplorable, non-intellectual, conservative, knuckle draggers out here, we catch a lot of flack, but it's from people that don't know, because they never attempted to talk to any of us. We catch that all the time, from why does the working class, from the uncalloused hands crowd. We go, why does the working class vote against their own interests? First of all, Sparky, how would you know what our interests are? You don't talk to us. You don't talk to us. You disdain us. You deride us. You dehumanize us at every opportunity. We are a bunch of hillbillies and yahoos, and out there working with our hands. Oh my goodness. At the very least, it's coming from people with cubicle jobs, and sometimes it's coming from people that don't even have jobs outside of academia. This arrogance. They claim, we represent the interests of the working class. How would you know, Eugene? How would you know? You don't talk to us. But that is the arrogance of it. They are dictating to us what our interests are as members of the working class. And that disdain and that arrogance cuts across all fields, man. All fields, whether it's academia, whether it's upper management, whether it's business, whether it's whatever, man. And they don't know. They don't know. So, of course, they're surprised. They're surprised by the results of the debate on Thursday, because they live in a reality construct that is completely separate from even the most tangential connection to what is actually going on where the rubber meets the road. Tangential, that's my college word. I got like three of those. Um, so it's really cool, man. At the end of a hard day, you're out there working. You're in the heat. You're sweating. You're fatigued. You're having to work with heavy machinery, and there's tension and there's stress and everything. And to be able to leave there and go to this weight room, this really badass gym that they have in the community center over here, it's and you get your lift on and you wind some of that tension out, and then you come back and you throw back some food, and then you go out on the porch and you sit and you just you chew the fat with people who are on your level, man. They understand, they get it, because they're in it. And it's really hard to quantify exactly how meaningful that is, to people who aren't in it, or people who aren't married to people who are in it, because you got folks like Carrie, and you got folks like Miss Emmy as well, who know. And Carrie, by the way, glad you made it. And I know Roman is hiding in the background somewhere. So let me get off this tangent and give my shout outs to the sponsors and supporters, first of all, and then we'll just jump into the meat of this thing. And I'll continue the rant, just maybe in a different context. I got to give shout outs first and foremost to Brother Roman. He is one of my oldest and dearest friends, man. We go all the way back to 1988, which is before some of y'all were even born. All the way back to right there at the end of the Reagan era, and it was a very different time. Anyway, he's always been a strong supporter of me personally. He's been a strong supporter of the program. You check him out at opiumtales.com. They have the erotic pinups and portraits people. He does fantastic watercolor work. He's always been a very, very creative spirit, and he's gotten off into writing as well. He's got, his lovely wife, Carrie, first of all, and she's an amazing woman and quite a sharp mind for investment, which reminds me, Carrie, I need to text you as well, sometime in between gigs or whatever, or we'll just have a long phone conversation. In any case, opiumtales.com. Beautiful watercolors put together of beautiful women who are beautifully naked, and testosterone-driven commentary. On Planet Bar, we call that a trifecta, and possibly a party. He's also put his first book out, From Dork to Pimp Daddy. You can find him on Amazon. Roman Riva is his nom de plume. That's all the French I know, Clem, besides a few obscenities. Sorry, I can't help you out here. Maybe we'll work on that. But that's his pen name, Roman Riva. From Dork to Pimp Daddy, and it basically uh, catalogs his journey from, Joe working class schlub to a dude who is being paid for the privilege of painting naked women, painting them while they're, well, painting pictures of them while they're naked. Whether he paints on them while they're naked, I don't know, but that is between him and Allie and Roxy and the other bevy of beautiful models that he has over there. So Roman, and of course opiumtales.com. Check out his book on Amazon, From Dork to Pimp Daddy. Check that out. George, right on, man. Hey, I'm glad you made it out, brother. Glad you made it out. And by the way, George, I want to say to you, while we're in between sponsor shout outs, I really appreciate your posts, man. I really like it when one of your posts comes across my feed. I'm just like, because like the conversation crew out here, there's substance to it. This is a guy that knows. He knows it because he's in it, and we're speaking on that same level. And your posts do that for me as well, George. So I'm glad you made it out. Second final sponsor shout out, my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest. Period. End of statement. Done. I don't want to hear anything. Actually, you're free to speak if you want to be wrong. But I'm telling you, man, these guys are the real deal. They are legit. And the Viking Lawn Ship, their big smoker trailer, is back out on the asphalt and concrete seas. And they are setting up in parking lots all over the Spokane area. You can find everything you need to know about when and where. If you want to grab some of that Nordic Smoke Barbecue goodness, you can find out on any of their social media platforms. Facebook would be the one that I would go for personally. Dusty is the pit master over there. He's freaking amazing, and he's also a very good friend of mine. And of course, brother Casey. And I got to give a shout out for his book as well, Freaks of a Feather. It is the most intense. It is the most intense memoir you're ever going to read, and I'm not the only one that feels that way. You guys may have heard of a fellow named Mattis that they refer to as Mad Dog. Mad Dog Mattis was so impressed with this book that, being a fellow denizen in the Northwest, a fellow Washingtonian, he actually brought my bro Casey out to have dinner with him and a couple other Marines, just based on the strength of this book. It is a memoir that started out as a suicide note. That should let you know the level of intensity that you would, and he will pull you into the moment, man, and he will take you to some very, very dark places, and you will thank him for the privilege of having shared that journey in some small way. The name of the book is Freaks of a Feather, also available on Amazon, published by Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. So these are the guys who are taking care of me and taking care of the program. Take care of them, man. Check out the book, kick them down some money if you're in the Spokane area. Get your butt out and have some of that barbecue. I didn't see Dennis. Dennis might be occupied, but Dennis is actually going to be coming through the Spokane area, not next week, but the following week when I am up there, and we are going to meet up, and he is finally going to get to experience Nordic smoke. Brother Sonny has been up there. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else who is here besides Charlie who has had some of that Nordic smoke goodness. I want for everybody to be able to try some of that. So again, guys, they're taking care of the program. Take care of them. Which reminds me, one more shout out for the band Red Desert. Those guys have not given me one bit of headache for using. We have been using that song as bumper music now. And guys, that's like copyrighted stuff. People get paid for that. And we've been using that now literally since 2020. Since I think maybe 6 weeks in was the first time that I played Older No Wiser as bumper music. And I was dancing around with a gas mask on, in the middle of the pandemic. They have been really cool too. I've messaged them on a number of occasions like, look, guys, here's my program. It's a lot of politically charged stuff. If you think that's going to reflect badly on you, or so there's going to be any pushback, I don't mind picking some other music. But they've been really cool, and in that way have been supportive of the program as well. So get on to some. I don't know what you guys do to download music anymore, but whatever platform, whether it's Spotify or Bandcamp or anything like that, check them out on Bandcamp, download one of their CDs, maybe pick up some merch, they got t-shirts and stuff rolling around. So find that out and help them out because they're supporting the program as well. This is how we build alternative economies. Another sidebar rant. This is how we build alternative economies, and this is how we break the power of those cultural institutions that are no longer working for our interests, man. We just start taking care of each other. That's it. You got this thing going on, cool, man. I'll put my money behind you rather than rather than these guys who either don't know me or actively hate me, but previously I've been compelled to buy. It's like take care of your local farmers, right? Buy your meat if you can from a local farmer or a butcher that works with local farmers. Buy your produce for you people that eat vegetables for whatever reason. Buy your produce from local farms, man. Farm fresh eggs. Take care of those people. If you get sucked into the system, they want you beaten down into grazerhood. You know what I mean? The way that you step outside of that is just do it on your own terms. Nothing says that you have to go to a regular commercial supermarket. Nothing says that you have to buy your meat from a source that you're unfamiliar with. Nobody says you have to buy the processed crap and put that stuff into your system. You know, Vote with your dollar. Take care of the people who deserve to be taken care of because they're doing it for themselves and not for the greater good, for the greater good and for the benefit of us as a collective because collectives are important. Sorry, Sparky, not going to happen here. All right, little sip of liquid enthusiasm there. Bouncing around with it. We're already 40 minutes into the program. The first segment that we are going to do is actually part 2 from last week. We are going to take another jump into Ryan's rabbit hole. That's right. Big thunderous roar of applause. Sure, the applause is coming through. I know. Ryan's not here. But it's cool. Thank you. You just give him some support. A little applause. All right, cool. Thanks. Nice guy. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Right on. I know I've got to look like a complete lunatic when I'm doing this stuff, but yeah, that's the thunderous roar of applause for Ryan's rabbit hole. This is something we started doing early on in the program, and it turned into a really popular segment. Ryan and I bonded early over the fact that we are both repositories of useless information. We're murdered to play a game of Trivial Pursuit with for that exact reason. And every week we take a little trip down the rabbit hole. What is the rabbit hole? The rabbit hole is something to take you a little off the beaten path, to broaden your horizons a little bit. We might talk about an historical event or an historical figure that you may previously have not have been familiar with. We might talk about a bizarre conspiracy theory or some hidden history fact. We may talk about some esoteric bit of wisdom that you had not been previously exposed to, but it's something to take you off the beaten path. Sometimes it dovetails with what we're talking about in the rest of the sermon. Sometimes it does not, but that's the glory of it. And it's your rabbit hole, right? You go down as far as you feel like it. If it's an area of interest, you go down that rabbit hole and you want to dig deeper, go deep. We're just, no. What I was getting ready to say was just low hanging fruit, and that joke basically wrote itself. So I'm going to leave it. Yeah. Don't be afraid of the rabbit hole. Don't be afraid of the rabbit hole. So last week, we began talking about a couple of Hollywood figures that are not giving nearly the credit they deserve for being revolutionary figures, not just in entertainment, but across the board as social commentators, as social influencers, laying the groundwork for things that would come later, things that sadly have been abandoned, and because of cancel culture and the maggot mob, they've eviscerated a lot of that stuff. The first one we talked about last week, of course, was the mighty Rod Serling of Twilight Zone fame. This week we are doing part 2, and we are going to talk about America's favorite redhead. That's right, I'm talking about Lucille Ball. I love Lucy. We've all got some cultural memory one way or the other. If you grew up at any time in the last 60, 70 years, you have some cultural touchstone that involves Lucille Ball. Everybody remembers her from the I Love Lucy days. They don't remember the fact that is Lucille Ball. Now, I am a biased source because I am a dedicated ginger chaser, man. that's just something that's hardwired into me genetically, to be a ginger chaser because of those genetic indicators and the red hair and either the blue or the green eyes. And it's just phenomenal. That is, yeah, America's favorite redhead, I Love Lucy. That's a lot of people's favorite redhead. She was smoking hot in the 1940s. I'm talking like serious, stunning, drop dead. You guys remember from The Devil's Advocate that little speech he was giving about the neck being the DMZ between the mind and the heart, and oh my goodness. I mean, for the 1940s, that woman was stop a clock hot. And she was also cutting edge on a number of other fronts. Um, she was the first. This was the first time in television history that a woman's pregnancy had been depicted. When she was pregnant with Desi Arnaz's kid, that whole process was basically laid bare for the whole world. The fact that she was even in a biracial relationship at the time was the stuff of much gum bumping and much controversy. And of course, as was exposed later in life, there were a lot of dark moments between the two of them on that racial basis. But that's not what we're getting into now, because it's real easy to pick apart the feelings of people after they're dead or even when they're alive. Uh, it broke a lot of barriers on television, but she had a ton of power behind the scenes as well, which is going to lead to the second bullet point that I've got going over here. But primarily, she was the first woman to run her own production company, period. Let me just end that, put a nice little big dot at the end of it. She was the first woman, period, to run her own television production company. Now, for as much as Hollywood likes to think itself forward thinking, they were pretty entrenched. They were pretty entrenched in their way of doing things. And guess what? Interracial relationships weren't part of that. She had to fight for every damn thing that she got, and to portray, they didn't even want to make that part of the series. I know you guys have seen I Love Lucy at one point or another. Let me see. I'm pulling up a quote from from her biographer, not her autobiographer, from her biographer. CBS and its sponsor, Philip Morris Cigarettes, which of course, Lucy was quite the smoker, and her voice reflected that. CBS and its sponsor, Philip Morris Cigarettes, were adamantly opposed to the relationship that was depicted in the show. They That was her real life husband, and they wanted to pick someone else for the role of her husband for the show, and she wasn't hearing it. Kathleen Brady, author of Lucille, The Life of Lucille Ball, told NPR they said that the American public would not accept Desi as the husband of a red-blooded American girl, and they were quite correct. They were quite correct at the time, because that just wasn't where we were culturally. Some people are still not there culturally, and I don't hold that against them necessarily. But the fact that she had the balls as a woman, that meant something totally different in the 1940s than it means now. But the fact that she had the balls as a woman to step up and say, fine, if you're not going to finance this operation, I'm going to go around you, I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to found my own freaking production company. What do you think of that? Pretty legit. The stereotypical fiery redhead with that unstoppable personality. But she fought a lot. She fought a lot. The show that did feature the pregnancy, let me go into a little more detail here. The episode where Lucy gives birth to little Ricky aired the day before President Eisenhower's inauguration. Because this was the first time this had ever been depicted on television, that episode actually drew more viewers than a presidential inauguration. How about that? All because she had the guts to say, no, we're going to put this on TV. Serling was cut from the same cloth. Serling wanted to challenge the viewers. Instead of saying, we're just here to sell cigarettes, or we're just here to sell whatever your sponsorship was, they saw it as a medium where they could take on some real challenges and send all the viewers down their own little rabbit holes, to broaden their horizons a little bit, to think about things in a different way. And that was a very, very powerful thing for a woman at that time to be. But again, owning her own production company and having the stroke behind the scenes enabled her to put her gravitas, for lack of a better word, and her energy into a little project that you may have heard of from a fella that you may have had his name cross your feed, a fellow by the name of Gene Roddenberry, who was putting together a sci-fi epic that was going to challenge a whole lot of political and social conventions and really, really push the envelope for what television as a medium was capable of, not only in storytelling, but in effects and in its depictions and in its fearless approach to particular issues and this and that. A little show by the name of Star Trek. That's right, Star Trek. Star Trek would not exist had it not been for the production power and the pseudo political stroke that this woman, this beautiful woman, had behind the scenes at the time. She changed the face of now, and here's where the greater lesson comes in. It may seem inconsequential. Yeah, but she only changed television. Okay. Or she only changed within the context of just one show. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Look at the way Star Trek or any of the things that were depicted, even in I Love Lucy, right, has resonated culturally, right? From the depiction of pregnancies, from the depiction of biracial relationships, which you may think of as good or bad, it definitely has shaped the culture. Star Trek, that first interracial kiss between Captain Kirk and Lieutenant Uhura, right? Again, all behind Lucy having the guts to put everything on the line. And Star Trek has turned into one of the most well-known sci-fi franchises ever, not just in the history of television, but in the history of cinema and all of these other things. So she just took a stand because that's who she was. She took a stand because she had personal vested interests in it, right? Again, she was legitimately involved in a biracial marriage. She wanted people to understand that, hey, pregnancy is a real thing. Women do this. Women do this. Of course, now cancel culture would make that impossible because she's a birthing person, but I digress. These were things that she had a personal stake in, and she had the guts to take a stand. It changed the course of television, which in turn changed the course of culture because millions of people had their minds sent down a particular rabbit hole because of her personal efforts. And that doesn't even begin. Again, that does not even begin to quantify the full width and breadth of the influence that she had on the entertainment industry. But I'm going to leave that up to you. That is your rabbit hole. Part two of the major movers and shakers in Hollywood rabbit hole, starting with Rod Serling last week, and of course finishing up with America's favorite redhead, I Love Lucy. Oh dear goodness, I do very much love Lucy. Hot redhead. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm belaboring the point a little bit, but yes, the woman was a mover and shaker, man, and a beautiful woman and a gutsy woman, and women like that are the rarest of breeds, and getting more rare by the day. So take a little walk down that rabbit hole. Lucille Ball, part two of the Hollywood rabbit hole. So I appreciate you guys coming out for that. So let's jump on in, shall we? Into rather, into the dumpster fire that we all watched on Thursday. Before I get into it, guys, sound off in the comments whether you have watched the full video, the complete 90-minute train wreck that was that debate. Sound off over here in the comments if you did or did not watch the entire thing, so I know the stretch of the audience and what we're talking about. Because it was an utter disaster. It was an utter disaster. Yep, as did I, Brother Stone, and I'm not shocked. And by the way, David, I'm glad you made it, and you're right about Red Skelton as well. Hopefully, that rabbit hole is just gonna take people in that direction as well. They'll start looking at some other influential figures. Doug, color me surprised. But I don't blame you. That's not a judgmental thing at all. Emmy, I'm also a little shocked, but again, not judging because I think we all knew that it was going to be a train wreck. All of us here, right? Deacon Mark watched it all. Oh yeah, I could imagine. I would have loved to have been on the porch. We would have had a blast watching that. The three of us. Uh, all of us here, everybody here. I think I'm fairly safe in speaking for the majority of people here that we knew it was going to be a train wreck. Here were the preconceived notions that all of us here went into it with. We knew that the rule set was skewed. And you guys know that I'm very big on protecting my integrity. I have to say, again, with the qualifier for the reasons that they did things the way that they did, we can leave that conversation aside. We knew that the rule set was skewed to favor Biden. We knew that Dana Bash and Jake Tapper were both TDS anti-Trumpers from the door and remain so. And they were chosen as moderators. There was no live audience. They had the mute button where there could be none of the random exchanges. If somebody started talking over someone else, they just cut his mic. That only got used a couple of times during the course of the whole debate that I noticed. Only a couple of times was that used. I truly expected, as I posted quite publicly on one of my pages, I posted a little humorous take on how the debate was going to go and how they would, Mr. President, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? And Biden would, yes, you've shown yourself to be a fine leader. Now, Mr. Trump, that's President Trump. No election denial here, Mr. Trump. Are you, in fact, the Antichrist? Many sources have speculated, experts in the field have speculated that you are indeed the great beast of Revelation. That was it. I was being humorous, but that's pretty much how a lot of us expected the debate to go. And Mark and Ida and anybody else who watched, uh, I got to right. Thank you, Mark. That's exactly where I was going. They wound up hurting him. Now, whether that was on purpose or not, um, Mods did jump in to say Biden twice while he was lost. Yes, they did. But it wasn't as naked and it wasn't as blatant as I thought it was going to be. So, in the interest of honesty and integrity, they really did play it about as fair as two people as vehemently and outspokenly anti-Trump as they are could have possibly been expected to play it. They really did not. I would I will venture to say that Chris Wallace in 2020 interfered to Trump's detriment more than Dana Bash and Jake Tapper did. And that's not easily said, and that's not said lightly, because Wallace worked for Fox, who some idiots still believe is a conservative mouthpiece. It's controlled opposition. But Chris Wallace did more damage to Trump as a moderator than Dana Bash and Jake Tapper did. I have to say that. Right. And that is where we get into the other conversation, George. Now you have to wonder what they did and whether they did this on purpose to get him out of office. And many have speculated that very thing. Bongino was on the cutting edge of that. Glenn Beck ventured to say that this might be a thing. I told a dear friend of mine, comedian Andrew Rivers, I told him back in 2020, you guys remember Pelosi started pushing and flexing her trophy rack and considerable muscle politically to get behind, re-emphasizing the power of the 25th Amendment. And Andrew Rivers was like, they're doing that so if Trump wins again, they're going to try to boot him with the 25th Amendment. I was like, you're thinking about this all wrong, bro. You're thinking about this all wrong, because even then they knew that Joe was spun. They knew it. And I told Andrew at the time, and he'll gladly concede at this point, that 25th Amendment that they were putting in place was not to get rid of Trump. It was their safeguard against Biden. Here's where they screwed up. And again, yeah, and that's possible. It's either going to be Big Mike or Newsom, but there's more to that. There's more to that, and they did hold off way more than I thought they would. The damage was done. They left him open to help the replacement narrative. Right? I've seen a million and one excuses. Right? Believe it or not, you guys remember when the Her report came out, right? Where they investigated Biden for the stolen classified materials and all that other stuff, and Her basically said, "Yeah, he's guilty. He's 100% guilty, but we're not gonna prosecute because the jury is just going to think that he's a doddering old man with a poor memory." You guys remember what we've been looking at for the past 2 weeks because I've gone over it here. What Merrick Garland is. Merrick Garland is in open defiance of a congressional subpoena right now because they want the audio. They have the transcripts, right? They have the transcripts. So why would he be fighting so hard to keep the audio out of public view? If we've already seen the written transcripts, why would they be fighting so hard to keep the audio out? And of course, we know what the answer is. We know what the answer is because those audio tapes are going to reveal him to be exactly what he is. He's spun. He's spun. He's gone. If he was your grandfather, you'd take his car keys. We all know that. We all know that because we're observant, and those of us, even those of us who weren't conservative or even aren't conservative, are at least intellectually honest. We look at what we see with our own eyes. We can process what's out of context. And in all honesty, some of those videos did take creative steps with the editing. I'm not even going to lie. There are several of those videos that have gone viral that we've all seen where if you look at the full, that it was edited out of context. They have legitimate complaints on that for several. Listen to what I am saying and my deliberate choice of words for several of those videos that are out there. 7 out of dozens. Not everything is out of context. I don't even remember where I was headed with that. Biden and his followers have been counting on that. That is the reality tunnel. If you guys are familiar with the works of Robert Anton Wilson, that was the reality tunnel that they were all in. That Biden was sharp, that all of these videos were out of context, that all of the rumors that he was fading was a conspiracy theory, that it was all right-wing hate speech, propaganda, this, that, and the other. That's their reality tunnel. So much so that if you look at the Twitterverse, if you look at the liberal news feeds, if you look at the liberal Facebook profiles and the usual suspects, these people legitimately were tweeting because they believed this. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. They were tweeting that Trump is a coward and he's going to find some way not to show up for the debate. That's why he keeps asking for all these unreasonable things like a drug test. He's a coward. He doesn't want to face Joe Biden on stage. He's looking for a way out. Now, of course, to those of us with open eyes and brain cells left to rub together, we're like, you gotta be kidding me. Certainly, surely you're trolling me here. No, they're 100% serious, and don't call me Shirley. They legitimately believe this. They legitimately believed that Trump. Now, here's where they did have grounds. And reasonable considerations. Trump is a madman. Trump is an absolute madman, particularly when you challenge him verbally. He will take it to the wall, son. You seen a concern in this side, boy? I will venture to say that is the most restrained that I have ever seen Donald Trump on stage. Would you guys agree? Y'all that watched it, would you agree? That is absolutely the most restraint that I have seen that man exercise ever. There were easy jabs that he could have taken at Joe when he was stammering his way through this and and he didn't take the easy jabs. He didn't beat him down. Tommy, I see you, man. I'm glad you made it out. Thank you, brother. And again, and Deacon Mark bringing out something he had to be, yes, he had a week to be tested for which cocktail worked. His decline will be rapid. He may not, and I agree. I don't think, seeing what I'm seeing, he's going to make it through until the end of this year without a catastrophic downturn. The man had 6 days. He had 6 days and a bevy of campaign aides to rehearse this thing. I promise you, I'm speculating, but there's a lot that I would put to say that he had a copy of every question. You think I'm wrong? Donna Brazile leaked all of the debate questions to Hillary before the Hillary Trump debates. That came out later. I guarantee you he had like a dozen campaign aides. They went to Camp David. He vanished from the public spotlight for 6 days for 2 reasons. Number one, and you guys notice the eyes. He had the demon eyes. He had the blown pupils. They did have him jacked up, and it didn't help. It didn't help. So ponder this. He had a week. He had the questions in advance. Let's just pull that out. Let's assume that he did not have the questions in advance. Okay. I say that he did. He had every rule in his favor. He had moderators that were solid supporters of the Democrats. Notice I didn't say supporters of Biden because they know he's too far gone too. All the rules were in his favor. They had his cocktail dialed in. He was jacked up when he hit that stage. He had 6 days at Camp David with all these aides to rehearse and to practice debate and to field every question and to deal with potential blindsides and all of these other things. He had 6 days. What you saw Thursday night was him at his peak. Ponder that. What we witnessed Thursday night was Biden at his absolute peak. Stimulant cocktailed out, right? Blown pupils, jacked. 6 days of preparation with aides that knew exactly what was going to be coming his way. And if my speculation is correct, he even had the questions in advance. This was the best he could do. This was Biden at his peak. And look at the excuses they're giving us now. What are the excuses they're giving us? Oh, he had a cold. He caught a bad cold while he was at Camp David. That's funny, because it seems like that would be something you'd tell people before he showed up for the debate. Oh, well, they didn't want to make him think that he was making excuses. Okay. All right. Tell yourself whatever you have to, Sparky. Tell yourself whatever you have to. He's leaving the older piece to the other side now. Yeah. JT, glad you made it out, brother. JT, last of the Grady Park hooligans. So, oh, brother, don't worry about it. I got started a little bit late myself. Here's where we're at. That was the best he's going to be. But while they're making the excuses for him, that he had a cold, that he was on medication, here's one where they said the quiet part out loud. They said that he functions best between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That if the debate would have been held during those daylight hours where he's the most functional, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that you would have seen a completely different Biden. That's why every time he's out doing stump speeches, it's like during the day, and that's why he comes off so good. No, he comes off so good then because he's got the same stimulant cocktail and he's reading off a teleprompter. But leaving that aside, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., the leader of the free world. How many of you guys here who are in the chat own a business? I know Shin, if he's still there, right? Shin, tell me the last time you were able to pull off everything that you needed to do at peak efficiency between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Tell me the last time that happened. What a thought. I want you guys to ponder this even further, because this is where people are putting the cart before the horse and they are focusing on the wrong things. They have told us, they've told us, and this is, simple Google search. Journalists say Biden fine. That's a search engine. Pop that into your Google and run that up to flagpole and see who salutes. Times of India. Biden operates fine between 10 to 4. His aides say that it was just too late. Here we go. His aides have come up with a new defense against Biden's sloppy, unintelligible debate against Donald Trump, and that is Axios of all people. They cited aides who said that there are two Joe Bidens, and the debate night saw only one. From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Biden is, and I quote, dependably engaged, and most of his public events are held during those hours. 10 to 4. Wow, interesting. The rest of those journalists say Biden fine. My memory is fine. Joe Biden shouts at reporters back in February when the Her report came out. Trump and Biden debate, Charlottesville response. My memory is fine. Biden hits back at special counsel after the Her report came out. This reporter, that reporter, all of them. I would have loved to have played this soundbite from Joe Scarborough where he's talking about this is the best Biden ever. Good Lord, I hope not. We've been treated to a slew of damage control. We've been treated to a slew of everybody saying, he's just fine. You're making too big a deal out of this. We've been treated to the party's final, most essential command. Ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears. Every one of these gaffes. I have another comedian friend who I'm not going to call out publicly, but I am physically embarrassed for him right now. Thoroughly physically embarrassed for him right now. There are two schools. Right. You remember. Yes, you remember. My memory is so bad, I'll let you speak. That was when Ducey asked the question when the Her report came out. When that Her report came out, you guys remember my reaction. They doubled down. He's fine. How dare this lowly functionary, this special counsel impugn our great leader like this by, you guys remember that following week, I thought for sure that was going to be the end of it. That following week, every single one of them started in on this, doubling down. He's fine. Not only is he fine, he's better than fine. He's super sharp. We have long conversations on trigonometry in 4 different languages just to start off the morning before he goes out for a brisk jog with his dog. It's insane, the gaslighting. But again, if you don't watch, what do I always tell you guys? Don't watch CNN, watch C-SPAN. Don't watch Fox, watch C-SPAN. If you hear about a congressional hearing on something that is important, ignore what any media outlet has to say. Watch the hearing on C-SPAN. Watch what they're actually saying, and then go back and watch what Fox is saying got said, what CNN is saying got said. If all your perception is being controlled by one of these mainstream media outlets, that is your reality. NPR, God help you. MSNBC, God can't help you. We knew. Those of you out there who still watch Fox, I'm not judging. I forgive you. You had one view. Those of us who look at alternative media, those of us who look at OAN, right? Those of us who follow particular figures and influences on Substack or X, we look at that and we fact check and we make our own decisions. We make our own assessments. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. These people who were counting on it legitimately thought that Trump was looking for a way out of this, that Trump was going to be in trouble, that this was going to be the final nail in the coffin for the Trump campaign, that they were going to show how off base everything was about Biden being impaired. And then we had Thursday happen in real time. Imagine the system shock, right? Right, Mike? Right? Yeah, there you go. Go to for these dynamics. Yeah, Mike, you're right. Yeah, some people do still actually watch Fox, and some people actually do still think it's a conservative network. Those people got rocked. Cognitive dissonance is a powerful thing. Okay? their propaganda networks, their particular reality tunnel, and propaganda is a powerful thing as well. And you guys know I've done whole sermons on the power of propaganda and the methodology of regime propaganda. It's a powerful thing. In their heart of hearts, they would have sworn to you on their mother's grave and with their children's life at stake that what they perceived about the nature of things vis-a-vis the respective cognitive capabilities of the two candidates in question, they would have sworn it was correct. They were thumping their chests and clapping their hands and talking about how Trump was afraid. That isn't what we got, is it? At one point, Trump shut down the little golf discussion they got into. It was Trump that said, let's not act like children. You remember the Reverend Bart Gravity Check? I swear, Trump out of nowhere says, let's not act like children. I was like, started flapping my arms, but I didn't fly. So clearly I was awake. And wow, that really just happened. Unreal. So here's where cognitive dissonance is even more powerful. Cognitive dissonance is even more powerful than the propaganda. They saw what they saw with their own eyes. Karine Jean Pierre and all the news whores at MSNBC and NPR ignore the evidence from your own eyes and ears. He's totally fine. They got to see plain as day, undeniably, that he's anything but. The majority of them, and this shocked me because there was some talk floated about a replacement. There was some talk floated about a replacement. But I saw more people doubling down, leaning on his performance the next day in North Carolina, where he's in front of a teleprompter and it's between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. No, really, he's okay. After the Her report came out saying that they weren't going to try him because his brain's too far gone, I thought that was it. Nope, they doubled down. After this, I thought for sure they got no, they're doubling down. Jill is flat evil. I used to think that Sharon Osbourne was the most egregious example of elder abuse on the planet for what she did to Ozzy. Jill, Jill's like, hold my beer. Biden could have been dead for the last 2 months, and Jill would keep dragging his ass out doing a weekend at Bernie's thing. That woman is pure evil, pure evil. Yes, the man is despicable. Yes, the man has been involved in corruption. Yes, the man showered with his daughter, in all likelihood, is just like the rest of the crew out diddling kids. Yes, all of these things. But I swear to you, in spite of all of that, because that's all between him and the boss man, there were actually a couple of moments where I legitimately felt pity for him. This is a broken man. How dare you? And then, of course, I processed through the rest of the filter and went, dude, you showered with your daughter when she was 12. You are a pig and you deserve everything you get. So, but regardless of whether or not he might deserve what he's getting, what is happening to him is what is happening to him is just for anyone else would be totally sad. But I'm going to say something about cognitive dissonance. I'm going to say something about confirmation bias as well. Again, do that little search for yourself. Journalists say Biden is fine. It'll pull you up some. It'll pull you up some video. In fact, I'm going to try to play this. I'm going to see if this plays. And guys, you may or may not hear it because, again, sometimes through the mic it does or doesn't. Let me see if I can get this. I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to play this video. It may or may not let, and the audio may or may not work. But That was the one that Mike was calling out. I don't know if you guys heard it at all. Um, where they confronted him on the Her report. And he was, my memory is so bad. I'll let you speak. I'm president. I've been doing this a great song. I love chocolate chip ice cream. And how dare you call anything into the? Forgot the bead necklace. My son died in Iraq. Yeah. David, the guy that you're referring to is John Fetterman, and that is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, John Fetterman, that dude from Pennsylvania that just had a stroke. I'm going to listen, guys. This is something that's just a matter of searchable fact. Joe Biden has had two life-threatening brain aneurysms. This is before he even ran. This is before he even ran for president. He had two life-threatening brain aneurysms. So to act as if he's 100% sharp, even if he wasn't exhibiting all these signs, it's just you're lying. Here's where I'm going to have to give a shout out, though, to cognitive dissonance. We are in the best position as conservatives, as Trump supporters, as people who care about the future of Western civilization, as people who care about the future of this country, as people who want to see the borders secured, as people who want to be able to take our chances going out in public without fear of being raped and killed, without the fear of foreign powers taking advantage of our weak leadership and our leaders who, in fact, are compromised to those very foreign powers. This is a very great moment for us. I'm encouraging their cognitive dissonance. Realistically, if they had a chance at winning, they've got to go. And we can have that discussion another day about who they would put in. We can have that discussion another day about how they would go about switching things up this late in the game. We could have the discussion about why Kamala, even though she ticked all the boxes of vice presidential candidate, is the last person you want running for president in lieu of Joe Biden. We can have all of those discussions, but let's keep having the discussion about Biden being A-OK. Please. Because there is no way on God's earth that they will be able to pull another 2020 if he remains the candidate. No one now, right? And I saw that poll, and Tommy, we're going to get to that. No one now legitimately believes that guy got 81 million votes. No one believes that. He never left the basement, and when he did, on a rare occasion, leave the basement, he couldn't fill up a high school auditorium with supporters. And yet, we are told that he got 81 million votes and got more black votes than Obama did in Detroit. Ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was the party's final, most essential command. After what we have witnessed over the past 4 years and the disaster of a presidency that the last 4 years have been, can you imagine the level of fraud that it would take to pull off another 2020? To convince, even though he's lost half of his black supporters, he's lost half of his Hispanic supporters, he's lost support of any of the young people that have been brainwashed into supporting Hamas and Palestine. He's lost all of them. He hasn't gone far left enough on the environment, far left enough on Israel, far left enough on this, that, or the other thing, the economy. He's not giving away enough free stuff. He's lost everyone over the last 4 years. And you expect me to believe that they're going to be able to convince the American public that he, beat Donald Trump, because you know what Trump's numbers are going to look like for this election. They're motivated. They are out in force. You know what his numbers are going to look like. You really think they're legitimately going to try to tell the American public with a straight face that he got 81 million plus votes? After what we watched Thursday night. Pray for their cognitive dissonance. Pray for it. Yeah, right, Tommy. Right. They need a candidate. You're absolutely right. That's what I'm getting at. They need a candidate that will get close enough to Trump's vote count that they can affect another 20. Right. And they're nowhere close. Yeah, Greg, that pretty well sums it up. You ain't black, you know, I'm thinking chocolate chip ice cream. Not a joke. Um, they know they can't pull it off. Pray that they try. Pray that they try. Pray that they keep doubling down. Pray that we actually get to see a second debate when that decline's gone even further and it's too late to pull him off. Here's where Jill has the stroke. Well, Biden already had the stroke, but I'm speaking with regard to the political stroke. Here's where Jill has the stroke. All of his delegates, because nobody real ran against him through the protest. He has all of the delegates. So Jill still has the say so. Count on her evil, whichever way it goes. I think she's evil enough that she's going to try to hang on to power for her own personal benefit, in spite of the fact that the entire Democratic political machine is saying we have to replace this guy and we have to do it now. She holds the stroke because she's got all the delegates. The way that breaks down at the convention, she's the one who names the replacement if there is one. Pray that they hang on to Biden. Because in spite of the fact that none of the other Democrats running against Trump could realistically beat him, they could get close enough to where they pull off another 20. Like Tommy was saying, they could get close, or like Mike was saying, they could get close enough. Somebody like Newsom, in spite of the open sewer that California is in under his watch and the massive budget deficit went from a surplus to a multi-billion-dollar deficit over a period of years because of his bad management. He's got slick hair, man. And he met with who? Who did they clean up the human feces and the dirty needles off the streets of San Francisco for not very long ago? Who came to San Francisco? President Xi. Why does the premier of China, why does the leader of China come to San Francisco in particular and meet the mayor of one American city? Why does that happen? The top level Democrats are compromised to the Chinese Communist Party. I said what I said. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. Eat a bag of dicks if you disagree. I'm sorry for your cognitive dissonance or your lack of information. I'm sorry for your lack of critical thinking skills. The top ranking Democrats, and let me add, a number of top ranking Republicans are compromised to the Chinese. If they pick a replacement, it will, in all likelihood, be Newsom. That's why Xi was meeting with him, because Xi, like the rest of us, knew that Biden was too far gone. He's not going to make another 4 years, and it's doubtful that he'll make it through the election. This is a continuation of power. That's the discussion we're having. You know that chain of command, how it drifts down in the event of something. If the president gets killed, it goes to the vice president. After the vice president, it goes to, used to be Secretary of State, but now Speaker of the House. That's what the Democrats are doing. That's why Xi met with Newsom. I wish that I were wrong. Right? Unless he mysteriously dies like Scalia. Right, again. And don't rule that out. Did you guys happen to notice what happened to Thomas Massey's wife this week? Died suddenly. Very, very tragic. Thomas Massey is a good man. He is a moral man. He is a man of character. Feel how you want about his politics. I don't care. He's a good man. In my analysis, I feel that Thomas Massey is a good man and a very effective member of Congress. His wife died suddenly this week. About 2 to 3 weeks ago, he was on Tucker Carlson's program and exposed the fact that every member of Congress has a handler from AIPAC, American Israeli Political Affairs Committee. They basically have an Israeli handler. Every member of Congress does. Massey went public with that exactly 3 weeks ago on Tucker Carlson's program. His wife died suddenly this week. Do with that information what you will. I'm not going to engage in a whole lot of speculation because He just suffered a loss regardless. But I'll be damned if that didn't cross my radar and it didn't make me look twice. Accidents happen. This is the way things are done in a chain of command. For all the grief that is given to Vladimir Putin, eliminating his political opponents and having people murdered as part of the political process, don't act as if we're above it. And I don't just mean Dealey Plaza, although that is the most egregious example. Don't act like we're above it. Happens all the time. A fellow by the name of Seth Rich, ring a bell? Who do you think really leaked all of that stuff from the Democratic National Committee that wound up at WikiLeaks? That wasn't stolen by the Russians. It was stolen by Seth Rich. And Seth Rich was murdered in a robbery, a weird robbery where they stab him to death in broad freaking daylight and then don't take anything, including his very expensive watch or his wallet with all his credit cards or anything. It's a robbery gone wrong. So don't act as if palace intrigue is simply a thing for Putin and his KGB cronies. They murder people as part of the political process. It goes on every day, Sparky. Right here in the United States of America, the quicker you get your head around that, the better off you're going to be. Something worth being concerned about. Whether or not they decide to replace him and who they decide to replace him with doesn't concern me nearly as much. Nor am I concerned with the impression that the media have given about his competence, because as I've said from day one, he's not the one making the calls. You know it, I know it, we all knew it. I'm not concerned with who they're going to replace him with. I'm concerned with the fact that everyone is focused on where this goes politically and nobody's taken a look at the implications of, oh, I don't know, who's running the show now? That's what got laid bare as well. Yep, right. Tommy, excellent. Yep. Wonder who did it. I think I recommended that book to you, didn't I? I think, was that me? Brother Sonny, glad you made it out. And just in time. And just in time. I'm going to go off on another little tear here, being the Cold War history fag that I am. There was a nuclear triad. Okay. Before we even go into this, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine the stuttering, doddering, addled cadaver that you saw on stage Thursday night. Just visualize them going through. We finally beat Medicare. Visualize how he kept getting. Look, not a joke. Picture that. I want you to fix that image in your head. All right. Now just kind of put it on the back burner and just let it play. You know how you put music on when you're cleaning up the house and stuff? I want you just to put that video on, just let it play in the back of your head. And then let me tell you about the nuclear triad. What's up, man? Glad you made it out. Glad you made it out. Then let me tell you about the nuclear triad. Mutually assured destruction. You aware of it? MAD. Mutually assured destruction. This is what kept the analogy that I was telling you about, the analogy that I went over in the opener. Here is the essence of the Cold War. Us and the Soviet at the time, Russians. Two kids standing in a bathtub full of gasoline. Two kids in a bathtub full of gasoline. One kid has 6 matches. The other kid only has 4. Both of them have more than enough to bring things to a fiery, incinerated conclusion in seconds. But neither one of them feels safe unless they've got more matches. That was the politics of the Cold War. And it was also the essence of mutually assured destruction. Because if I strike that match and drop it, guess what? We're both going up. That's how deterrence worked. For decades, that is how deterrence worked between the world's 2 nuclear superpowers. Still got that video playing in your head? Oh, stuttering. All right. Okay, so let me go into the triad and how that works. There are 3 basic delivery systems for nuclear warheads. Strategic long-range bombers are one. For us, that's the B-52s and the B-2 Stealth and the B-1B. For them, it's the Tupolev series and a number of other very, very powerful, which oddly enough, Putin hasn't seen fit to unleash on Ukraine just yet. But, the Russians are losing and, Zelensky's going to take Crimea back any day now. I digress. You have strategic bombers. That's one leg of the triad. They stay at their fail-safe points 24 hours a day. They refuel in the air. And whenever they get the go code, they head for their targets. Generally 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours of flight time, depending on location in Russia. The largest political landmass on the planet. 4 to 5 hours of flight time to deliver the warheads from those long-range strategic bombers. Then you have the ICBMs, the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those are the silos that we have in the Dakotas and in Montana at Air Force bases like Malmstrom. Talking about the Minuteman, talking about the MX Peacekeeper. Those are the latest generation. And we could go all the way back to the Atlas or the Titan, most of which have been discontinued and pulled out of commission, decommissioned. They take about, give or take, anywhere from 24 to 36 minutes to hit their targets. Inside any superpower, I'm sure most of ours are still targeted towards Russia and Russia's military bases, but we probably got a number targeted for China as well, maybe a couple for North Korea. Then you have the submarine launch missiles. You remember, was it last week? Last week when Putin gave us a taste of our own medicine? Oh, you guys want to put nukes in our backyard? Let me show you what it looks like to have our military power projected in your backyard. And he sent a couple of warships to Cuba, along with a nuclear submarine. Everybody got all bent out of shape and flustered. He's got a nuclear submarine right off of Cuba. Little word to the wise, Sparky. 24 of those same nuclear submarines are operating off the eastern seaboard and the west coast of the United States and inside the Gulf of Mexico every minute of every freaking day. We still hear about it because Putin is a chess player. He's not thumping his chest looking for a boxing match. That was a move just to go, we're close, right? And most of the American public did not, so they freaked out. Those subs are operating off our coast and inside the Gulf of Mexico every minute of every day. Prudhoe Bay in Alaska, bet your ass right there, because what better way to cut off our oil supply if things really, really, really got sideways? This is the nuclear triad. Submarine launched ballistic missiles, 6 minutes flight time. You have a nuclear submarine operating off the coast of the United States. It is 6 minutes flight time from launch to impact on Washington, D.C. 6 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh. You're dead. Sorry, that was completely inaccurate. Why? What? Let me just get a sip, chill out for a minute. 80 sip pop, don't worry about it. That's the triad. So you ponder that. You still got the video running in the back of your head. Somebody launches because we finally pushed the man too far in Ukraine by putting our tax money behind a militant cocaine-addled midget, alleged Jew. And Papa Vlad says, you know what? I've had enough. I need to send a message. He launches anywhere. Doesn't matter. First shot could probably come from a submarine. 6 minutes. 6 minutes. They've got to break out the nuclear codes. They've got to break out the nuclear football, activate the communications network, and pick from a rogues gallery of possible scenarios for retaliation. And there are dozens. Full counterstrike, where we let everything, targeted counterstrike, where they hit one of our military bases, so we hit one of their military bases. Limited European theater strike, your limited Asian theater strike. All of these things with all these different complications and all of these mega deaths That's where the band got the title, by the way. The death of 1,000,000 people by way of nuclear destruction. That was wasn't spelled the same way, but that was coined by the U.S. Congress and SAC NORAD back in the 1950s. Millions of deaths in each one of these possible scenarios. Are you still playing that video in your head? We finally beat Medicare. This is the man who has to make that decision. He's got to make it in 6 minutes. This is the man who has to decide what we do economically if the Chinese utilize the economic nuclear option of dumping all the money that they hold in debt in US dollars and dumping that into the market and watch our economy collapse in seconds. You know, the people that he's compromised to, and a lot of Republicans as well. This is the man who is allegedly leading the free world. Now, the good news is, for folks like you and I, we understand that he's not really the guy. If he was your grandfather, you'd take his car keys. And you really think they let him have the nuclear codes? You really think this is the man who's making the decision for World War III? Should it all get sideways? China invades Taiwan. Putin says, screw you, and utilizes those heavy bombers against Kiev, like I wish he would have early on. But Putin's playing it cagey. I love you, Papa Vlad. He's not the man making the decisions. You know that. I know that. But for the American public, particularly that grazerish branch of the American public that believes the news pipeline and up until Thursday night believed that he was 100% sharp, cognitively sound, and running the show, how terrified do you think they have to be right now? They are frightened down to their souls, and they should be. But thankfully, and we could go on a whole hour tear about that. Thankfully, they're doubling down. I hope they continue to double down. I hope that Jill won't let go. She's already far enough into this elder abuse thing that I hope she makes a theme party out of it and carries it all the way into November. Because there are only two possible outcomes. If Biden remains the candidate, Biden remains the Democratic candidate, he's the guy on the ballot come November, there are only two outcomes. Only two outcomes possible. One, a Trump landslide, or two, a monumental and publicly obvious fraud that no amount of media propaganda coverage can run cover for. And then we get to find out. So for people like Neil Ross, typically I don't call him out by name anymore because we have had our differences in parted ways. But for people like Neil Ross and others like him that are black-pilled to hell, probably just going to steal the election again anyway. Well, damn you for doing a disservice, because I'm going to make you this deal, all of you. And this deal can be summed up in just 3 words. Just this once. Or 3 other words. Once more, please. Those of you who think your vote doesn't matter, you can make a case for that. Those of you who think that your vote does matter, but they're going to steal the election again anyway, you can make a case for that. Those who think that your voice does matter and they won't steal the election, but the next candidate is going to be just as bad as the next guy, you can definitely make a case for that. But just this once. Just this once. I am begging you, imploring you, from my heart of hearts, just this once. If for no other reason than to clear your conscience, participate. And this is the back end of that deal. I am urging you to vote. I am urging you to play along with the system, no matter how useless you think it is. This is the back end of that. This is the back end of that. Hello. Thank you for showing up. If in November they pull off again what they were able to do in 2020, if in November we win by a landslide and nothing changes. If in November they pull the strings, they neutralize the process, and they render us politically impotent, I give you my word right now, publicly, you will never hear me ask you to do it again. I give you my word right now, publicly, that I will concede that the first three boxes, you remember the boxes: soap box, jury box, ballot box, cartridge box. If everyone participates, you give me that one more time in November. And if you are correct, I right now, here, live, publicly give you my word that I will concede that the first three boxes are done and we have no resort but the fourth. You'll never hear me advocate for the process again. But just for the sake of clearing your own conscience, please, just this once, take yourself to the ballot box and vote in person. In Washington, we don't have an option. It's all mail-in balloting, mandatory in the state of Washington. That's how they run it. Those of you who are not similarly encumbered, go. Go to the polls, cast your ballot. Take friends. Bongino's got a great rule on that, the 10-10-10 rule. 10 posts, bring 10 friends, register 10 friends. Trump had a great little hashtag on it, too big to rig. We have to make the landslide so monumental that any fraud that could overcome that is going to be so patently obvious that everyone will have to concede. So I'm giving you my word publicly. I'm pretty much begging for you guys to go to the polls and do what you can. Just this once. And I'm going to ask you to really hope against all hope, and no matter how it turns out, that they double down on cognitive dissonance. This is the one time you will hear me refer to cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias in a positive way. It can serve us well. Pray that they keep doubling down. Pray that they keep him as the candidate. Pray that they do not replace him. There will only be two outcomes. And you know which one of those I'm going to be praying for. So, dealing with the bullet points, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to say with regard to the election. There's some other things I would like to go over, but I want to make sure to cover this one before we get out of here because this one's important to me. I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately. And that is something I did not know about you, Tommy. Did not know. Right on. We should have that discussion when I finally get my ass out of a plane. Lance, right on. You made it out. Glad, brother. Glad. I missed a few people in the transition here. Exodus chapter 20, verse 7. Chapter 20, what do we know that's about? 10 something. Come on, you guys know it. Exodus chapter 20, verse 7. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Repeated again in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 11. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. You think about taking the name of the Lord in vain, what do you think of? The first thing that pops into your head when you think about taking the name of the Lord in vain. Oh, God. I'll be goddamned. God damn it. I swear to God. And you know what? You can make a case for that scripturally, but that's not the essence of what it is in my analysis. And again, there are people who are deeper in this that have a much better take on this. Deacon Mark for one, Brother Sonny for another, Bill probably more steeped in the scriptures for a longer period of time than I have been since my return to the faith. But I'm going to float this because it's something I've been thinking about a lot. We get approached being soldiers for Christ, being men of faith, and also being as politically and socially charged as we are as men, particularly the warrior caste that I run with. Men like Brother Shin, men like Brother Sonny, Deacon Mark, Bill Wade, JT. Yeah, think you're going to walk through somebody like John Tim. You I hope you took your vitamins, brother. It's going to be a bad day for you. Men like JT who show each other love by beating each other over the head with sticks. But being of that character on a political and physical level, and also being soldiers for Christ and walking in the faith, we are, I say we, I'm speaking with regard because this is something I have wrestled with on a personal level with people known to me. And it has come up a number of times, particularly in the past several weeks, as this thing ramps up with some of the decisions that are coming down. Some of the things that are happening with regard to the preservation of the West. And you guys know how I feel about the preservation of the West and of Western civilization. You know how I feel about the United States of America and the promise of what this country was and what it could be again. And I rage when I see young ladies like Jocelyn Nungary raped and killed by two Venezuelans. I rage when I see these faces, and I rage when I see these faces. I do get angry. And as we went over in the opening, Proverbs 29:11, a fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself out of control or under control. And they're right. They're absolutely correct in that assessment. But here's about taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain. I have been accused of using my walk in faith and my religion as a justification for feeling the way that I do politically about enemies of the West. That is to say that, for instance, I'm screaming about pedos running the planet because I don't like them politically, and screaming about them being pedos and communists and closet Satanists and rejectors of Christ, or certain secular nations that deny Christ. Looking at you, Israel. Because I disagree with these things on a moral level, I have been accused of disagreeing with them on a political level and using my religion as justification for that. What does that have to do with taking the Lord's name in vain? Because that is the essence of that verse. That is the essence of that chapter and verse, and that is the essence in my analysis of that commandment. It's not about goddamn this or I swear to God that. It's not. That is something that you should avoid, and I'm doing much better with in my defense. But the true essence of taking the Lord's name in vain is exactly what I am being accused of when they step to me in that context. First of all, they haven't done their homework, because these are things that I've been opposed to, vehemently opposed to, violently opposed to, long before my return to the cross. Second of all, it makes the assumption that I would even feel the need to create an excuse for doing any damned thing that I felt like. And yet, when they hit me with that in that frame of reference, I had to do some soul searching. Because, of course, the knee jerk response is exactly what I just said, isn't it? I've never needed an excuse to do anything. And I've felt this way about evil and been able to call it evil long before my return to the faith. But that's on the larger issues. And then I started seriously examining myself and my behavior on issues that are closer to home. Due respect, I did not find myself wanting after some serious reflection on that level. But I did feel like it was important enough of a thing for particularly people of faith. Everyone across the board should be aware of this particular phenomenon, this particular bent, and should constantly and ruthlessly examine their own behavior for evidence of it. And I did. Again, in my own analysis, I was not found wanting of using. This is the essence of taking the Lord's name in vain, is using your religion, using the Lord's name to legitimize and justify your own ends. People that hate homosexuals because they just hate homosexuals people that hate homosexuals because somebody between woodworking and basket weaving counselor touched their pee-pee at summer camp and they just hate them because they hate them. People that hate them because that's all they've ever heard is that they're supposed to hate them, but they've got to put some religious assignations. Assignations, college word. I got like 3 of those. They have to put some religious assignation behind it. I don't hate them because they make me feel icky. I hate them because God says I'm supposed to hate them. I don't hate these people because politically they justify infanticide. Let's just call that what it is. Politically they justify infanticide. You hate them because they're empowered women. You're just hiding behind the Bible. And if you are, that is in fact taking the Lord's name in vain. Again, you people that have a deeper background on it, feel free to correct me publicly or privately. I would prefer that you correct me publicly. To say I am speaking out against an invasion from a culture that is incompatible with ours, from a culture that wants us dead. Hamas, Hezbollah, Islam. That I just hate them because I'm a bigot and I'm justifying it by hiding behind religion. If in fact that were the case, I would be guilty of taking the Lord's name in vain. That is me using the boss man by way of the carpenter to justify me being an asshole. That is a way for me to continue in hateful, morally reprehensible, repugnant, intellectually unjustifiable behaviors towards my fellow man. I'm doing these horrible, violent, lust-driven, murderous things prideful things, wrath based on pride driven things, not because I'm a dick, but because boss man told me to, says so right in the scripture. That is taking the Lord's name in vain. Now, again, I've never needed an excuse, particularly a religious excuse, to do any damn thing that I wanted to do, good, bad, or indifferent. And I have been able to observe evil as being evil and to call it evil to its face and make no peace with it throughout the 30 years that I was following the Asatru path. But even if I had gone hardcore atheist and when we die, we turn into worm food and there's no greater thing after this life, even if I had been of that mind, I have never been, ever been, and I challenge you, any of you, to prove me wrong, the type of person that needed a justification for anything. But I'm glad that the accusations came my way. I really am. Because I'm all about shoring up weak points. You guys know, and I've already done self-analysis when it comes to my vulnerabilities. Devil want to come for me? Lust, pride, wrath. Those are my big vulnerabilities. Lust, pride, wrath. In no particular order. But it occurred to me with those accusations, even though they were baseless, and even though they were easy jabs by intellectually weak and fearful and simple-minded and easily led grazer type people who were non-believers and needed their own justifications, their own secular religion, their own humanism as a defense against my walk in the faith. I'm glad that they hit me with that, because I take those accusations to heart, because I'm not the kind of person that's afraid to admit that I could have been wrong. And if they had a legit leg to stand on, I need to take a look at that. So however this might play out in your life when it comes to taking the name of the Lord in vain, and I've gotten much better. I used to, goddamn this, swear to God that, like it was punctuation. Like I used to drop F-bombs. I'm making a legit effort, and I'm doing very well with bringing that back under control. Having said that, I don't know how it might play out in your life, but that's not the essence of taking the Lord's name in vain. You should probably get that under control, but do some reflection. Maybe it's not something of a political bent. Maybe it's nothing that is a hill you're willing to die on. Maybe you're not taking serious evil to task, like fighting traffickers or opposing the death of the West, a self-inflicted death of the West, and our own cultural prostration and our straying and our denial of the boss man and the carpenter. Maybe it's not on that level. Maybe it's something very, very simple. But do take the time. Examine yourself. Am I justifying this behavior or this belief that has outlived its usefulness? Am I justifying this on religious grounds? Because if you are, that is taking the name of the Lord in vain. And as Exodus and Deuteronomy both share with us, the Lord will not hold him guiltless who taketh his name in vain. I'm not even speaking necessarily to the Westboro Baptists of the world. I'm speaking to them, but I'm speaking more to the Joel Osteens of the world. Not judging, just making observations. He is by far not the most egregious offender. Not by a damn sight. Osteen has legitimately worked some good in some people's lives. I'm loath to say a good thing about him because of my disagreements with him on doctrine, but Osteen is not the worst offender by a damn sight. But again, it's not just religious justification for religious-based arguments or religious-based beliefs that is your way of taking the name of the Lord in vain. It could be anything. It could be you using that as justification, not even outspoken or verbally, but in your own mind. Is this really something that is based in righteousness? Is this really me trying to bring genuine good to the world and bring people back to the light and touch minds and open minds and touch hearts and souls? Is this really my motivation right now? Or am I just a jerk with an axe to grind? And if I throw on a Deus Vult tattoo, that makes everything that I do okay. I'm not that guy. I never want to be that guy, and I don't want that for any of y'all either. We are all sinners, and we fall short of the grace of God. Deacon Mark, I saw what you said about separating the sinner from the sin, and Brother Sonny is very, very big on that, and I'm right there with you, man. I am tier one sinner. Don't make me confront your sin. But if I'm despising you as a sinner merely on that basis, on the basis that you are a sinner, and I'm despising you on that basis, then I am truly taking the name of the Lord in vain. I am elevating myself to that status, and that is not somewhere that I want to be. I seek only humility. Seek only humility in that respect. To realize that I'm nothing. I'm nothing. Trash, trash, wretched sinner. Oh, brother, I've got your sinner. I've got your sinner. Believe it. I will never use that as a justification for something that is not rooted in righteousness. I will not take the name of my Lord in vain. You will get a goddamn or I swear to God out of me sooner or later. Right? You will get that. I'm still human, still break. What you will not get out of me is I hate you because the Lord told me to hate you. I hate you because what you are doing is legitimately evil and seeks to spread that evil. So I am not hating you as a sinner. I am forced to confront your sin. Believe however you want, live however you want, commit whatever degeneracy puts a tickle in your pickle, Sparky. Vaya con Dios. But don't catch me trying to use my walk in faith as justification for aberrant behavior or justification for behavior that I wanted to indulge in as a sinner, because then boss man is confronting my sin. So I ask all of my brothers in Christ, don't ever be afraid to step to me. If you see me even leaning in that direction, consider it the same as if you saw me jumping back into lustful behavior. If you saw me thumping my chest, being prideful again. If you saw me giving way to random explosions of wrath. The kind of violence old Bart was known for. Random, unjustified, just violence for its own sake. You guys ever see me falling into any of those behaviors? I'm slipping back into lust-driven behavior. I'm slipping back into pride. I'm slipping back into wrath. And if you ever see me leaning that way towards using my walk with the carpenter as justification for behavior that he would find abhorrent and has in fact forbidden, I want you to feel comfortable to step to me directly and publicly, if need be, and check my ass. because that is the kind of love and trust that I have for you. That is the kind of love and trust that I would want you to have for me. And that is how we are all bonded together, walking in faith with the boss man and the carpenter. Don't take the name of the Lord in vain verbally, and certainly don't take the name of the Lord in vain by the way that you live, because the way that you live and the example you set says something. I want to live in a way where people can look at me objectively and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that guy's, yeah, he's pretty messed up. He's pretty weird. He's loud, kind of violent. I hear some bad things about him, but I look at the things that he does. I look at the message that he speaks. I look at the way that he handles himself around people. I look at the way that he conducts himself. If that's what it is to be a Christian, right on, man. I'm down with that. Ryan, and I'm sad he's not here today because he paid me one of the, I'm going to see if I can find that. He paid me one of the highest compliments that I have ever been paid. I'm going to see if I can find that. He paid me one of the highest compliments that I've ever been paid this week. And what I'm telling you now is partially as much inspired. It is as much inspired by what Ryan posted this week as it is by the accusations that lesser men lobbed at me over the course of the past several weeks. It was literally one of the highest compliments I've ever been paid. And I'm scrolling right now, guys. Just be patient with me here, because I will find it. I will find it. And I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this verbatim. And again, this is, someone would be right now to show me, is like, is this about your pride? This is not about your pride. This is about, I do have a lot of pride in the fact that I've got friends like this. But this is about the example that I just stated about being that example in the way that you live and the way that you conduct yourself. But you guys know how close I am to Brother Ryan, And you also know that he does not share the faith, but he operates with a moral compass that should be the envy of a lot of people who do profess to walk in the faith. And he posted this earlier this week. And I'm quoting now, I'm reading it verbatim. I'm not much on any religion. I find the dogma and ceremony intriguing with a few. That said, the only man I know who is legit with his Christian faith is Bart Stewart. No excuses for the BS man up part of his faith. He doesn't hide behind blind faith. He will answer questions that show the shortcomings of the carpenter kid and not be moved. We need more onward Christian soldiers like him and less Christians against dinosaurs, less Joel Osteens, less Catholic who believes that Saturn's rings are made of Jesus' foreskin. Keep the faith, my brother. You made me proud. That was literally one of the kindest things And you know what? I might even take issue because I really don't feel like I'm the best example. A lot of times I'm still early on this path and I'm still wrestling with it and I'm still struggling with it. But that's one of the kindest things that he could have ever possibly said. And that is the example that I want to live with all my flaws, and they are many. That is the kind of example that I want to live, and it's the kind of example that I want to set to where people can look at the way that I am living my life and what I'm trying to do with it and be like, okay, he's damaged. He's damaged goods. He is a crass and vulgar creature. But that is the way that he lives. And if that's what it is to be a Christian, I can get down with that. If that is all the legacy that I leave to this whole world, it will all have been worth it. So, Brother Ryan, thank you for that. Thank you. I'm going to close with a prayer. I'm going to let y'all get up out of here. Lord God, help me to lead by example. Help me to continue to be an example. Help me to recognize when my behaviors are coming from the heart and coming from a sense of righteousness when they are in line with your divine plan, and help me to realize the distinction if they are being driven by pride, if they are being driven by ideas of the flesh, if they are being driven by anything but your righteousness and your will. Help me to be able to check myself, Lord. Help me to walk in the light. Help me to walk in the light of truth and to bring people to truth and to bring people to your light. Help me to touch those minds and open those hearts and bring home those souls, Lord. We have a huge, huge fight ahead of us. We got some dark times coming, Lord. Put the steel in our spines and the fire in our hearts. Train our hands for war and our fingers to fight, Lord, but we know that that begins in the heart, and that begins with the drive of the soul. And the soul is the domicile of the Holy Spirit. Let the Spirit speak through us. Let the Spirit act through us, that we may be better instruments for your will and your word, Lord. To find ourselves in our place and a part of the divine plan. And I just thank you for finding a place for us in it. Thank you for the blood of your Son, scourged, tortured, and murdered on that cross to buy our salvation. That grace, that mercy, let that be our guiding light. Let that be our example. And we will fall short of it, Lord. We will fall short of it, but don't ever let it be for our lack of effort. Don't ever let it be for us misguidedly taking your name in vain and using man's commands to guide our principles. We answer to you, Lord. We answer to you. And on that day, may we be able to stand before you and hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. Let our aims in the life to come be what drives our behavior in the life that we're living now in this world. I pray these things in the name of the risen Christ, whom I ever serve. Amen. I really love y'all, man. I really, really love y'all. Every single one of y'all for being here. I'm gonna pass the plate, because it's what we do at the end. You guys know if you want to drop me some coin, I'm around. But guys, I'm working right now, and this is primarily the labor of love. You'll know when it gets down to the point where like my livelihood depends on this. I'm not there right now. I'm working. If you want to kick me something, you know how to do it. I'll spare you the whole thing, but I'm working right now. I'm very blessed in that aspect, and I'm going to be leaving up out of here and heading back to Spokane, and got a week up there, and then I'm off to Rock Springs, Wyoming for a month and a half or so. So, G-Dub, I'm glad you made it, man. Catch the replay. I'm glad you showed up in time for the prayer anyway. I really do love y'all, man. Thank you. I never doubt the divine plan. Never doubt the divine plan. The only thing that I doubt is when my own emotions, my own heart, my own mind spin me up over my place in it and how I fit. But I'm learning, slowly but surely, I'm learning to let go and just say, hey, this isn't mine anymore, Lord. This is yours. This is yours. I trust your will. Trust it all. JT, next time I come through Texas, you and I are going to have a long sit down, because you and I don't believe you and I have seen each other since my return to the faith, man. I think the last time we encountered each other was I was just getting ready to leave Houston to come up to the Northwest back in 2021. Charlie was down there, had cancer. I remember, it was a lot of y'all. Doug, I can't wait to see you again, man. Like a lot of y'all. Brother Bill, can't wait to see you. Clem, Tommy, whole lot of stuff happening, man. Right now I'm in scramble mode. I'm trying to get through this next couple of work assignments, and I'll be able to take some downtime and square some things up. I got a new grandkid. I got to go down to South Carolina and meet. I have friends down in Texas. I got to get that A license back, man. I got to get my ass out of an airplane that ain't even on fire. So I had a lot of stuff. But I thank y'all. Every night when I pray, man, a theme that I keep coming back to is the presence of the really great men that the Lord has put in my life, that He's just put in my path as part of that divine plan. And I didn't even realize the greatness of it at the time. Even when I wasn't walking in the light, He was looking after me, man. He was looking after me. He was putting these people in my path. Not the least of which is my father, greatest man I've ever known. But everybody here, man, every one of you, these great men. And Emmy, don't feel like I'm leaving you out because you're an outstanding woman. And Charlie, if you're still hanging out, these great men, all part of that plan, brother. All part of that plan. And I was having a talk with my new friend Steve out on a conversation pit the other night, man. There are no coincidences, bro. There are no coincidences. I don't believe that anymore. And I'm learning to let go and trust. I'm learning to let go and just say, dude, and you always hear me say it, lay down that burden and pick up your cross. And I'm all about picking up the cross, but you know me, man. I'm a power lifter. I got to yeah, I'm going to get that cross, but go ahead and leave that bag of bricks where they are. I'm learning to lay the bricks down, man. Hard-headed. Been a long time coming. But I thank y'all, every one of y'all, for your part in it. I'm going to go ahead and close this thing out, man. Let's get rolling. This bumper music takes on out. A little bit of Clutch. Speaking of evangelicals, I don't know if you ever seen Clutch live, man, but watching Neil Fallon do a live set is like watching a tent revival preacher leading a rock band. It's amazing. You guys should check them out if you ever get a chance. Anyway, fellas, you want to drop something in the collection plate, you already know how to do it. I won't belabor the point. If you can't do it because we're still living in a Biden economy for a couple of months now, at least, maybe less, I get that, dude. I totally get that. But here's what you can do for me. Tell a friend, man. Spread the word. Say, hey, man, crane operator. He ain't nothing special. She's a crane operator with some opinions. Fat, toothless, crippled, loudmouth. Some bitch gets on rants and raves for a couple hours every Sunday. But he's a like-minded and kindred spirit, and I think he's got something to offer you, man. Come check out the program. If you're on Facebook, if you're on X, if you're on any of the social media platforms, tell somebody about it, man. Show them the replay. Give them the link. Spread the word, man, because the bigger reach we have, the more hearts we can touch, the more minds we can open, the more eyes we can pull the scales up off of. Because going forward, nothing else is more important. So do that, man. But here's something you can do, not just for me, but for yourself. Stone, what are we doing, brother? Stone, what are we doing? You already know the drill. What are we doing? Do it not just for me, but for yourself. Live the three, baby. Hashtag live the three. What's the three? Live the three. What's up with this guy? The three prime directives, man. Reverend Bart in the Church of the Immaculate Apocalypse. The three prime directives, man. Live the three. Directive number one, signal to noise. Signal to noise ratio is all jacked up right now. They'll try to bury you with the noise, make you think there's no signal left. You got to be the signal. And not only do you have to be the signal, but you got to be that signal with enough punch to punch through the noise. Be the signal in a world full of noise. You got to be the light in a world full of darkness. They will smother you with the darkness. They will bury you in the darkness, make you think there's nothing out there but darkness. They will demoralize, they will dehumanize, they will emasculate you with the darkness. You have got to be the light that carries through the darkness and the light that punches through the darkness. Which brings me to the third rule, the iron rule, the prime directive. You have got to be the strength in a world full of weakness. And I don't mean just strong here. I'm talking about here, and even here. You've got to be that strength. It's the most important, because without that, none of the other stuff matters. Without the strength, you will not be able to punch that signal through the noise. Without the strength, you will not have the tenacity. You will not have the endurance to carry that light through the darkness and punch it through to the other side. So strength above all, man, first and foremost. The iron rule. Strength in a world full of weakness. When you pray for strength, clarity, and discernment. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, because we're all we got. Boss man's got the plan. Carpenter kid's got your back. Y'all stay strong, man. I love each and every one of y'all. God bless you, man. Thank you for being here. Probably not next Sunday. Gonna be on the road. I'll miss y'all. I love y'all. Thanks.